401. I think I can do a quick introduction. So, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name is Sandy Gadiwal, and I am the current chair of Sikh Heritage Month, the Ontario chapter. I want to thank all of you for joining us today, and especially our panelists today, Jaspreet Kaur, who will be our amazing moderator, as well as Harinder Singh. I just want to remind everybody, continue to follow us on our website, sikhheritage.ca. We're halfway through April, just over, but we have some amazing programming for the following 2 weeks. And we do have one more Sikh Research Institute, one more Sikhri event next Saturday as well. So continue to register and continue to share with your family, friends, and network. And thank you all for joining. Thank you so much for your time. You guys are going to have a great hour and a half today. We'll have an hour of talk with Harinder Singh presentation, and then we'll follow up with a Q&A. For all those that are attending, as you can see, we have a Q&A button on the bottom kind of left side of your screen. Please use that at any time to ask questions to the panelists. We will try to get through all your questions, but given that we might have a bit of a time constraint on our stop time, we may or may not be able to get to everything, but please don't put your questions in the chat. It's a little hard to follow. Please do put them over in the Q&A. And with that, I will hand it over to Jaspreet Kaur.
Thank you so much. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. And happy Sikh Heritage Month and happy virtual Sikh Heritage Month. I'm so excited that we get to do this and stay safe and get to do this in this virtual format. I'm very excited to be able to moderate the conversation with Harinder Singh, who is a senior research fellow at Sikh Research Institute. If you haven't checked out all the amazing things that Sikhri does, check out all of their social media platforms. There's something on there for everyone, no matter where you are in your journey in Sikhi. I have worked with Harinder Ji in different capacities. He has taught me at Sadek, the 2-week leadership retreat that Sikh Research Institute does, and get to do really awesome things like this where I get to monopolize his time for an hour and a half and ask him questions about Sikhi. So welcome, Harinder Ji.
Guru Fateh, Varji Khalsa, Arji Fateh, and nice to have conversations with you. We are fellow travelers now. We are always, sometimes we are in different capacities of how we work together and learn from each other. And today we are colleagues. So we are having a conversation about the Daswe Padsha.
Oh, it's so awesome. So I'm going to read the summary and then we'll go from there. And I think this is why most folks showed up, because this is what we had put out there. We're going to talk about today, why did the Guru fight battles? What were the politics of the Gurus? How did the Guru train the Sikhs to become the Khalsa? This conversation will ask these and other similar questions from the life and legacy of the Guru to give insights into what constitutes the Sikhs' politics and how they can better inform current Sikh political engagements within the Panth and with nation states. So we have such a rich Sikh tradition that we come from. We are so beautifully, we do not have this binary of this is the political world and this is the spiritual world and they're to be kept separate. Everything is knit into everything. We're going to focus our conversation on the life of Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj and specifically some of the things that maybe we don't get to talk about as often. There's a lot of stories we have about young Guru Gobind Singh Ji. We have a lot of sakhiyan from 1699, from what happened after that time for the birth of the formation of the Khalsa. And we have that time in between. And I want to start there. So we know that the majority of Guru Gobind Singh Ji's battles occurred before Vaisakhi of 1699. What can you share about those battles? Why did he fight those battles? And what was his source of conflict with the Pahari Raje?
Sure, and that's a very loaded question. So I think we'll have to deal with one element of it at a time. But before I start, I just want to mention, to be relevant to the time and the last 24 hours of what we are living in. So all the survivors of and the victims of the Indianapolis shooting, they are on our minds, and our prayers actually come from the ideas of Guru Arjan Sahib in today's Hukum, which essentially is that we can get over suffering, we can get over pain when we focus on this idea of Har, or the idea of one light. And I also have farmers' protest folks in our mind sitting at the borders of Delhi, because now there are operational elements are being taken out in the middle of storms in northern India. So with those two folks in mind, we still continue to learn from the life of the Guru. And the question being raised is, about the Guru's politics here. So look, the first thing we need to understand is the majority of the Mughal battles were fought in the pre-Vaisakhi moment. And I understand the spirit of the question being asked. So actually the three major battles which were fought before Vaisakhi of 1699, all three are directly against the Mughal emperor. So when I do say here Muslim or Hindu, I want to just say it in the beginning that the religious affiliation is only for matter of identifying it. What really matters here is their political affiliation, because that's what our focus is today. So those three battles, all three of them against Mughals, pre-1699, Battle of Pangani, the most famous one, the first battle Guru Gobind Singh fought, and then the Battle of Nadan and the Battle of Guler. All three of them are against what we would today call the Mughal Empire. And in fact, the allegiances of the King Hills, the 22 of them, the Rajas we call them as, 22 Hindu hill chief Rajas, they actually worked with the Guru to defeat them. So when Gurus, for example, and you hear the accounts of this in Bachittar Natak quite a bit, that when Fateh Shah comes to attack Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj, or whether it was Hayat Khan or Najabat Khan, the Rajas actually worked with the Guru. Now, what's very important thing to understand in this dynamics is that until 1699, the consolidation of the battles of Hindu hill chiefs was that they worked with the Guru, side by side with the Guru, not necessarily all of them, but many of them. And after 1699, their allegiances changed. So we'll have to discuss that a little bit as to why that happened. Second thing I want to mention is there are different numbers being thrown around about how many battles Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj fought. Generally accepted view is there were somewhere between 13 to 21 or 22 even. Depends on how you count, because certain things are battles. Some people have called them skirmishes. Some of them did not divide a particular day of the battle. Point being, there were many. And if you take all of those 21 to 22, the last several were actually primarily with the Hindu hill chief Rajas, who in one way or the way, one fashion or the other, were changing their allegiances with the Guru. And this is where, what is, for example, when the battle of Anandpurs are starting, there might be a battle with Paide Khan and Dina Beg, but the question really become for us is, what is Himchand doing? What is Raja of Nahan doing? And the 22 others like that. So Guru's battles pre-1699, when the Khalsa declaration had not happened, were primarily directly with the Mughal estate. And then after 1699, they primarily, almost all of them, were against the Hindu hill chief Rajas, who kept changing their allegiances with the Guru. So essentially, sometimes they're with the Guru, sometimes they're not with the Guru, but all of that shifted after 1699. So Vaisakhi, which is, this week, all these commemorations are happening. If we don't understand Vaisakhi from political affiliation angle, we will not understand the battles of Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj.
So what do you think was happening in terms of, we always use the Guru and their lives and history for modern applications. What do you take from the relationship that Guru Gobind Singh Ji had with leaders of other states and other nations at that time?
Yes, so this is where, here is one way to look at it from a modern perspective. Again, it's not exactly like that, but we are trying to understand it. So today we will say, if there is Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj is having issues with Canada, what is his relationship with the Prime Minister, who is a national level leader? And what is his relationship with the premiers, who are the provincial level or state level, as we call them? And those are shifting. And as you know, what even today, what Ontario is going through, a premier wants particular thing, but even different municipalities or different administrations want different thing, including in the case of how police is acting currently. That's sort of the scenario at the time between 1675 and 1708. So the first part, primarily the issues are having with Aurangzeb and his generals, or the associates of the emperor, for example, people who were running Sarhand at the time, right? But they were directly with the national empire, we can call it, at the time, the subcontinent of India's empire. And then the second part, those same people now are fighting because they are not liking what Guru has done on Vaisakhi. So the relationship is shifting. And what is it that Guru did? So these same hill Rajas, they did not like that the so-called the low castes were now empowered and are not only fighting side by side, they fought earlier too, but earlier, remember, they're fighting quote unquote the outsiders, quote unquote the establishment of the time. Now they have to sit by side, they're sitting not only side by side, eating the same food, are part of the leadership now. So now they're asked to join the leadership of the low castes, which the Guru established to give to the Khalsa. Every single Panj Pyara was a so-called low caste. Now they're having issues with this. Okay, so Guru wants to do this. What about us? We are the ones who are the nobles. We are the ones who have the right to rule, as they called it, right? Because we are the Kshatriya clans, or we are the ones from a European angle who have the divine right to rule. This is where there is a changing alliances. In some cases, they join the Guru. Some cases, they directly fight the Guru. Some cases, they sign agreements, and then they break the agreements with the Guru. So the relationship of Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj in terms of the national empire at the time, as well as the regional empires at the time, and then people who were subordinates under those empires, it kept shifting. With Aurangzeb, it's not shifting. With regional entities, these Baitar, de Raje, as they are called in Punjabi vocabulary, they're shifting allegiances. At the end of the day, there was only one who eventually completely sided with the Guru, which was the Raja of Nahan. So again, I don't want to get into each riyasat because we do know some things about it, but we can say is the state relations are complex. National relationship was very clear as to who is the adversary, but within the regional political alliances, adversaries were shifting quite often, depending on what the immediate issue was. As we say, politics is always local. So in those last several battles, the politics became very local, and it became you can say more complex because now the caste part kicked in.
Do you, and so in these shifting allegiances, do you see that as the way you're saying if it works for, it's like you and me against the establishment, we'll work together, and then if you bring in lower caste people, it's going to be me against you. I'm oversimplifying, but do you see Guru Gobind Singh Ji's politics at the same time being as strategic, or do you see them more uniform during that same time period?
So the larger vision is definitely not changing. It's constant. So Guru Gobind Singh's allegiance is not changing. The allegiances of the people who ally with the Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj is changing. And this applies equally to the Sikhs. When the very first battle is being fought, most Sikhs ran away. So I want to make this clear. This is about human tendencies. That's why I don't want to make it about that the Hindus were the only ones shifting their allegiances. Sikhs even shifted it initially. When the first battle of Pangani was to be fought, it was actually the Pir Buddhu Shah and his men and his sons who gave up their lives. Most Sikhs did not fight on behalf of the Guru. Few relatives of Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj and very few Sikhs, and one sadhu fought. Even all the sadhus had left. So the point was, Guru Sahib, earlier question was raised, what happened between 1675 and the 1699? This is the first battle where the training which had started, now you're testing. Now you're training for regular battles with the state, where diplomacy will matter, where actual war will matter, the negotiations matter, and allegiances matter. Everything is coming into play to change the way we live, change the way freedoms are exercised. And this is where, when the first battle, it gets very clearly established. Even most Sikhs were not clear when it came to political alliance. So they ran away, they got scared.
If we take a step back just into this context, and we're looking at dynasties, we're looking at family lineages where we have people who are ruling because so-and-so ruled. Where does Guru Gobind Singh Ji get his right to rule? Where does he get his right to hold political court? And do you see that somewhere in, is it a progression from Guru Nanak Dev Ji to Guru Gobind Singh Ji? Is it a divine sovereignty? And why does he have teeth? If he's a guru at the time, why do other people come to him to forge political alliances?
That's right. So great question. I think this is the larger thesis of Sikhi. When we start presenting Sikhi as a religion only, it creates problem. When we start presenting only as a dharmic religion, it's a problem. When we start presenting only as a revolution, it's a problem because we don't fit into any of that. So this is where our own narrative matters. Our narrative says very clearly in Guru Granth Sahib that Guru Nanak Sahib started a Raj. Nanak Raj chalaya, such kot satani neev de. That Guru Nanak Sahib started a Raj. It's an indigenous word which essentially at minimum starts with governance and goes all the way to physical territorial rule included. So you see that starting, every guru is presented as being somebody who practices both Raj and Yog, which means connection with the one, as well as political manifestations of those connection. Similarly, you see Miri Piri being practiced. That's what a Mir and a Pir was, just a spiritual head or a political head. But more importantly, every Sikh knows this. We called our Guru Sahib's Patsha. And Patsha is a little bit different than Badshah because Badshah is only the owner of the land or the one who rules the land. Whereas Patsha becomes classically what we say, Bardo Alam Shah, the one who rules the two worlds. Classical interpretation of two worlds used to be that this world and the world hereafter. The other interpretation within the Sikh context has always been the Mir and the Pir, the religious world and the political world. So the Sikh psyche, the Sikh manifesto, the Sikh scriptural tradition, what we call Guru Granth Sahib, secondary text, manifestation of all this in our institutions, whether it's Darbar Sahib or Akal Takht Sahib, it's been very, very clear that the Guru rules both domains. Guru not only rules it, in Guru Granth Sahib it says, Raj Jog Tin Maneo. Guru enjoyed both of these domains. So when you are excited about something, you enjoy doing that. So Guru is enjoying taking care of these governance issues. People brought disputes. At some point, it was setting up a constitution. So this is where Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj comes in. When you have a center, when you have a constitution, when you have a declaration, now it has come time to do what? There are changes in 1675. Guru Tegh Bahadur Pasha's Shahadat has happened. State has declared an open war. And when you've exhausted all the means and you are doing public beheadings of several Sikh killings of the Sikhs with torture, and you're doing that to the Guru, so that training then started in that thing. Now we're going to do this head on. And taking it head on means a new sort of a prototype will be developed, right? And that prototype, we're calling it Khalsa or the archetypes. And that training started from 1675 to 1699. And the training started with Shabad. Training went into poetry. Our poetry will be different. Our music is different. The way we even do Hola Mahalla, which is reinterpretation of Holi, the way we play with colors is different. Our warriors are different. Our scholars are different. Our martyrs are different. This is our renaissance during the Guru period. This is somewhere between 22 to 24 years of training. And then Khalsa is revealed that we have already done these three larger empire battles. We will also deal with the battles within and the battles with the local regions of the Panjab. And this is now the ability to rule. You're come out of being an apprentice to setting up the rule.
So that leads really beautifully actually into my next question. Also, I'm seeing so many parallels just in how Qimti that concept is of being able to enjoy the Raj and the Jog, because we are currently in these positions and we're challenged to them and they can feel exhausting, but to feel excited and entertained by the challenges of modern life and to see them as a akhada for your Sikhi, that's actually really exciting. But so in this time that Guru Gobind Singh Ji is intentionally laying a foundation for something, do you think that he is visioning a post 1699 Anandpur Sahib as a separate sovereign state?
Again, I'll take it in the spirit because these are Western paradigms. What is the sovereign Sikh state? So, well, if Anandpur is being set up as the center of the Sikhs, where we will exercise every freedom, including religious and political and everything in between, economics, whatever else you want to call it, and you are building 6 forts. Why do you build forts? And these are not ceremonial forts anymore. They're all happening pre-1699. And you are doing all these trainings where the scholars are being trained to become martyrs. When you have a diaspora center which was already established in Bihar by Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib, and when you do the call, you see 4 people from diaspora rise up to join this revolution. To basically, it's not joining it only. Many joined the revolution. Here are the 5s who are taking the lead to leadership. The representatives of the people are coming through the diaspora, 4 out of 5. Anandpur is that project in today's vocabulary. Is it sovereign? In every sense, it is sovereign. Two battles were fought just in Anandpur, just to fight for whether Guru can even stay there or not to continue this sovereignty. When you have two battles just for that, what does that tell you? This is where Hill Rajahs then sign an agreement. Okay, we'll let you do this if you leave the particular time, because they don't like the level of consolidation Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj is doing. And it is the Hindus who are coming, the Sikhs who are coming, the court poets who are coming. When Pai Nandalal Goya, people who used to serve in the Mughal court, decide to come and serve at the court of Anandpur, with Tani Ram Chatrik, a Punjabi Hindu 100 years ago, writes a beautiful poem to describe what is this court of the Guru Gobind Singh, which nobody had ever seen before. This means all of this is absolutely about exercising all elements of sovereignty. And to exercise that, Khalsa was trained to do that. And that's what the roads to Anandpur really mean. When you take Amrit, including the initiation ceremony, Khande Bate Di Pahol, that's exactly what to say. They say part of the conversation is, what's your home? And we say Anandpur Sahib. So we have, all of us have a road to Anandpur from that perspective. And Anandpur Sahib becomes that reminder to us to fortify whatever we need to protect, including all freedoms.
There's the way that you're like framing that the time after Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji Maharaj's Shahidi pre 1699. Dr. Nikki Guninder Kaur Singh talks about the birth of a Khalsa, reinserts a feminine lens into what was happening at that time, and it's she goes back much further to look at what would be an incubation or a pregnancy. Do you see any of that feminine spirit? Do you see that moment of birth? And how far back would you go to say that that incubation, that like the seeds of the Khalsa or that pregnancy would be?
I absolutely see it. I think she's the only one who has actually brought in this angle. We've been ignoring this angle. She's bringing it out of also Gurbani, not just a historical interpretation from the feminist theories. It's beautiful. This impregnation, in fact, if I may further it before I go into detail, Professor Puran Singh says, we are currently impregnated with that. And we have to figure out how to do our own deliveries of this. And whether we sit at in the Western hemisphere right now, or whether we're sitting in South Asia. So this impregnation is the very idea of when we say the Shabad enters us. Guru Nanak started that for us. Guru Arjan kept training us and says, at some point, this Shabad needs to serve the Sant, the Guru, the perfection, the truth exemplar. And when you start serving, and we see this, many people read and sing Gurbani. Few of them start to serve the Guru, not just the public at large or only the charitable acts. And then some of them say, this is my full-time effort. That's what Khalsa used to be. The ones who are full-time revolutionaries, not on a Gurupurb or for a project. I'm just putting it in today's context. So that delivery, when somebody is a full-time revolutionary, which means I'm full-time wedded to the Guru, I'm not just flirting with the Guru from time to time. That's what Khalsa was, and that job, Nikki Guninder Kaur, Dr. Kaur has put that beautifully, that impregnation started with Guru Nanak Sahib Maharaj. It started with Shabad, and then its delivery happened. That's why we shouldn't, the Sikh vocabulary says that Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj ne pragtaya singh, pragtyo Khalsa Paramatam ki Raj. Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj did not create it. The creation started with Guru Nanak. This chiseling was happening. And at some point, the chiseling is brought out to public life in the open declaration. And that's what Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj did. So that feminist idea, I just want to also mention a sort of a fact during that period itself. We have actually totally forgotten Panjab Kaur. What we don't realize is during this period of 1675 and 1699, one of the major element which Guru is dealing with is those who claim to be the agents of the Guru, Masans. And in that one Masan's house, Ram Rai is the wife of Ram Rai named Panjab Kaur. She is living when Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj is living at Paonta Sahib. You know, at the current Paonta Sahib at the rivers of Jamuna, is the same space where the poetry and Diwan happened. What we are not talking, it's not even 20 to 30 miles from where Panjab Kaur is living. Her invitation for Guru Gobind Singh to please come to my space as well. I have been living with this where I know what my husband did was not right. And how do we get rid of the corruptions of these administrators on the behalf of the Guru who have been looting people, who have been misguiding people? It was her invitation. that Guru Gobind Singh, and that's why Guru is all compassionate. Guru is always open. Guru doesn't look at that no one is condemned. In the eyes of the Guru, no one's condemned. We might have differences, difference of opinions. Even when Panjab Kaur says, please come and I would like to see you and I would like to revive what we used to be, and Ram Rai is repentance of that. Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj answered that call. So this idea of feminism is not just in philosophy, it's not just at the ceremony, it is very much about engaging with those who recognize, including people like Panjab Kaur. And I use this incident to talk about, perhaps the next solution of taking care of the internal house cleansing among Sikhs, which includes all these local Gurdwara committees to all the way SGPCs and DSGMCs. Perhaps we need the leadership of the next Panjab Kaur.
That's beautiful. Going back again in that, like looking at that historical period, there's some 18th century historians that say that they tell that story as during Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji Maharaj's Shahidi, the Sikhs were not visible, no one came forward, and then there's a building of a warrior culture. And that then Guru Gobind Singh Ji gives us a very physical appearance, a very outward appearance, and those are the seeds that are planted on the way to 1699. Do you see that? Do you challenge that? How do you take that in?
I accept varieties of those.
Okay.
And this is part of perhaps my learnings over the years. I used to fight certain elements. What I'm understanding is, look, we need to get the larger thesis from Gurbani. So Gurbani's thesis is very clear. None of the gurus changed anything. We accept that in faith, in understanding, in Shabad, in our wisdom, because Guru Granth Sahib says so, that the Jot and the Jugat were exactly same, which means the wisdom of the gurus, every single guru, and the methodology, Jugat, the way they did things, how they implemented the idea, were exactly the same, only the body changed. So same happens in the case of Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj. So when we do hear secondary texts sometimes alluding to this fact, that this was a reaction to the martyrdom of Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib, I understand that response from a human perspective. But Guru is not just reacting. Many things happen in Guru's life. If you read the Savaiyas attributed to Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj, when he's at the age of 5 in his journey to Anandpur, he's witnessing what people are doing. He does not react. He's saying people are worshipping in different ways. He, in fact, eventually concludes. He says, Kur kirya urjyo sab hi jag, Sri Bhagwan ko ped na payo. People are caught up in trashly behaviors, modes of worship which are full of trash. And they are not trying to figure out the mystery of, how can they ever figure out the mystery of the one divine? Sri Bhagwan, the adorable one, the fortunate one. That's the Bhagwan, right? That's the literal meaning. So Dasme Pasha is not reacting, but I understand, when I'm writing certain things, even in my best intentions, my vocabulary will be limited because I have limited lenses. So in those lenses, we see somebody says Guru Gobind Singh created this as a response. Guru Gobind Singh created Khalsa or inaugurated Khalsa. So Khalsa will have to be recognized. Sikhs were always recognized. Jahangir had no problem under his empire not to figure out who the Sikhs are, even in when the first battle was fought for the Baj. Imperial forces looked the same, and so did the Sikhs, who were not called Khalsa yet. But they were able to differentiate based on behavior, even when the looks were same. And the looks used to be same in Punjab, even 100 years ago. Even now, if you meet the Buzurgs, you cannot tell whether it's a Muslim or a Hindu or a Sikh. The behavior told you that. The way you walk, the way you present, the way you think, the way you implement differentiated you. So part of the case was differentiation, yes, because not everyone wore kirpan. So the external signifiers were, in addition, are reminders to yourself first that these belong to the Guru, and then people also knew you belong to the Guru. Ithe sada thodi ji problem aayi hai, if I may just take another minute on that.
Yeah.
Now we say kirpan belongs to me. It never did. We are not capable of it. It's all, Professor Poonam Singh and other writers have written, this is always Gurus. And since we have made it our, we misuse it, including in which Gurdwara has not misused it. From my local places where I've been part of as well, all the way to national and other politics, many still don't misuse it. But when it is happening, it's because we have made it our own. It's not. Kirpan was always Guru's. It's a gift from the Guru. When you have a gift, you know how to protect it, savor it, cherish it. and use it. And the warriors use it. Training is not to use it. Warriors training is not to use it, and only use it when it's utmost necessary. So those are the kind of things which are hidden in these ideas as well. So it's not a reactive design or a reactionary measure. Rather, it is part of Guru's democratizing the next leadership.
Yeah.
Because Khalsa is the enthroned one. Panj Pyare are the five lovers. And out of that comes our tradition of who are the representatives of the Sikhs. And those representatives are supposed to be drenched in love, who have also embraced the Kirpan.
It's really, really beautiful. And it really highlights the limitations of our thinking, that we would see the gurus as separate and one as maybe being in response to another. And they existed in a way that wasn't as linear, and they ekoi jot si. And yeah, so and the Khalsa was revealed. It wasn't invented or created. I like the specific language and the way that it was there the whole time, and that sovereignty was given over to the Khalsa. So I'm going to take it a little bit to what's actually happening in Vaisakhi of 1699. We have a lot of really rich ideology, really rich symbolism and ceremony and tradition, and every part of it you can dive into and explore and sit in and be overwhelmed by. There's been a lot of significance given to Khande Kipal, and some people see it as an initiation of something internal. They see it as a deeply spiritual and personal journey, instilling of Nam, that magnification of that love. What are the politics? So if we're talking about, this conversation is about what was happening politically at the time, what do you see politically happening in that ceremony?
Very important question. This is one which I've had to grapple with a lot. I can honestly say that when I went through the process of initiation, I did not have as much even intellectual appreciation for this. Because this is something we have sort of as a collective not spent time on behalf of the Guru. Panj Pyares are supposed to be doing this. Our writings, our explanations, whether they're kathas or narratives, we are supposed to be doing that in them. And I've had to discover that by primarily readings, firstly in English and then in the secondary text. Especially the text, and a Sikh world is going through serious, we like to just throw a line and destroy a secondary text very quickly. But I think they're very, very important, especially from the contemporaries and near contemporaries of the Guru. And they are very clear on this, that when somebody voluntarily decided to become off the Guru publicly, because privately you can be off the Guru, that's the spiritual relationship only. When you publicly did that, it was a declaration that I belong to the Guru. You knew that, your family knew that, your community knew that, state also knew that. So that's very political. Initiation ceremony, if you only invoke that element only on Nagar Kirtans today and only during the Khande Paul Amrit ceremony of initiation, it is a serious reduction. That's why Jado kehne ne in Garib Singhan ko de Patshahi, that my ability to rule, which was given to me by the Guru, and Guru Nanak said it was given to me by the divine, Ikonkar, he says, I am now giving it to the Khalsa. It's a political transfer of leadership. That political transfer of leadership means this is something to be exercised very, very diligently, carefully, considerately, and only on behalf of the Guru, not in considerations of what my family, what my clan, what my caste, what my nationality might even think of it. You cannot confuse this with any nationalism, whether it's Indian or Pakistani, Canadian or American, or wherever you might be living. So currently we are grappling with that because, as I admitted myself also, I've had to learn that by reading people like Kapoor Singhs. I've had to learn that by reading Pai Nandlal Goya, by reading, for example, Sri Guru Panth Prakash, to understand the sovereignty ideas, how it was practiced by the Sikhs. So 1699 is very political. It's actually, I cannot say it's only political because Sikhs are not only political, and that we create those problems when we say that, but it is very political because now you are full-time revolutionary on behalf of the Guru. You're not just an administrator, those were Masans. And by the way, the clarity on the procession of this is so important that 2 weeks before the Vaisakhi of 1699, Guru issues a Hukumnama, Dasme Maharaj, which abolishes the Masans. So this is when you introduce a new bill, you nullify the previous one. They were nullified. They struggled with them. Guru Tegh Bahadur Pasha has written, we didn't even know which Masand is with the Sikhs and which Masand is with the Mughals. So when they were nullified, they have to be replaced by someone. So they were replaced by the Khalsa. This is how political it is. This is why when Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj says, "Inhi ki kirpa ki saje hum hai," there he's not just talking about people like me who have just gone through the ceremony or who only just do their nicknames, who are only interested in particular element of Sikhi. Those will be the large tent Sikhs. Those who are interested in all of that and are going to commit full time, going to commit only on behalf of the Guru to do something about it by having the tough dialogues, including within the current missiles, current jathebandis, as well as with the current relations with the state.
Those are such powerful examples to know that the gurus created governance systems, abolished them when they didn't work, created new ones, and also that transfer of power, the humility it takes to give the Panj Pyare Amrit and then to take a knee and to ask them for it. I am humbled and I am at a loss to explain how beautiful and powerful that moment is and that transfer of power is. We have an understanding of how the Guru Khalsa Panth functions and how we govern and where power exists. In this post Guru Gobind Singh Ji's life, we have Guru Granth, we have Guru Panth. What does it look like when you have the Khalsa Panth and you have Guru Gobind Singh Ji still alive? And what do we learn from governance? Like, how does power work? Who's making decisions? We know at times Guru Gobind Singh Ji is accepting hukum from Panj Pyare. We know at times that they are guiding their people. So what do we take from that period where the Khalsa has been revealed and Guru Gobind Singh Ji is still our Guru?
Yeah, great question. So I must first admit that I'm also exploring this. I do not have the answers. I can share some data and perhaps some way to look at it because we really have to work hard at this. So far, we have been ignoring these parts of the history when it comes to larger dialogues. 30 million Sikhs need to understand this. And all it depends on is just like we're trying to understand what's happening at farmers' protests or what's happening in Ontario today with the current premier. We take time to understand issues. Then we are able to take some positions, and we take positions based on our understanding and political affiliations. So let's start at the minimum, which is what you're asking. Thank you for asking that, Jaspreet. So look, there are 8 years of supervision, maybe 9, depending on how you count, right? 1699 to 1708. And this is the time where leadership has been disrupted. We talked about Hindu Hill Rajas were not accepting. Sikhs also weren't accepting. I mean, this is not just a declaration and transfer of power. This is a transfer of power when none of them are from what they call Savarna Jatis, from the privileged classes. Can you imagine? I mean, today we can't even accept this. Look at how much chaos it causes, even within a Sikh Gurdwara. That's why we are struggling with this. So then there is a supervision because right now Guru's authority is still there. Although transferred people are not buying it. The state is not buying it. The local politicians are not buying it. Sikh Masans are still not buying it because they are being dealt with. And there is a confusion, and we see this confusion persisting when Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj leaves this earth. But we will talk about that a little later if need be. But in those 9 years, what Guru Sahib is establishing, and this is what the next leadership does, that you transfer it while you are alive. Every Guru did this. And then you work to make sure there will always be adversaries who will not accept it. That's been given from the Guru Nanak period onward. But then the Guru assures that the next ones are accepted. This system must be accepted. And those who accept this system, they are the Sikhs. Otherwise your allegiance is not to the Guru. So Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj supervised this. It's like the apprentice is now in command. And the mentor now says, the existing mentor, the previous presidents and previous people have not done this better jobs of this, but the Guru period did. And then Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj then supervised it. They made sure the Khalsa is accepted. They made sure there was a cohort of Sikhs who believed in this system. And that cohort continued the mission of the Guru. And from there, we see the rise of the 18th century, the beautiful elements of Sikhi, even when we lost half of the Sikh population.
That is such a powerful way of looking at it, as a transfer of power, as a period of supervision. That's definitely not a way I framed it before. I'm gonna use that, trademark this conversation. We're gonna use that moving forward. So let's move forward. Let's take it into what we're doing today. We exist in very complicated. We exist in the diaspora. We exist in Punjab. We are in positions of leadership where we are constantly engaging with the nation and the state that we are in. I've been asked to, talk about stuff with the Canadian Armed Forces. You've been asked to consult with armies and political heads of other states. How do we take and it's a very, very big ideal, but that's what the Guru's lives were for us, and that's how we should use them. How do we take the lessons learned from how Guru Gobind Singh Ji interacted with other people during his life, and how do we carry that spirit into how we conduct our very political lives with the nation states we exist in today?
And now you're going where the rubber roads the meat, as this rubber meets the road, as they say, right? So look, just breathe. So this is where I think uh, this is a very important conversation. To start, I would mention one thing, and then it's open for debate. One thing this cohort of Sikhs, we still don't have an agreement. And I don't think we need to look for everyone's agreement. It's the ones who are committed must agree. Committed that our allegiance belongs to the Guru. And just like we said, in the Guru period, it's the same thing. There were always Sikhs who were becoming like the nobles, that when they didn't get the transfer of power, they kept fighting for it for generations. And that still continues. Okay, that said, the cohort which is committed to the Guru Khalsa Panth, as we call it today, and only sees the highest level of thought in Guru Granth Sahib, that cohort needs to, in their disagreement, agree to one more thing. And that one more thing is that Khalsa has always had a messy relationship with the state. It is not a black and white relationship. And even in Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj's life, I shared with you earlier, or tried to at least, and maybe I didn't do a good job, that between 1675 to 1708, there are changing allegiances, but Guru's allegiance is not changing. So our clarity must exist, even if others are changing, whether sometimes they are with the Sikhs and sometimes they are not with the Sikhs. So let's accept that. That is the reality of human behaviors, because people are trying to survive. Every politician, every state has to do what they need to do also. That said, Sikhs are a nation currently, and as a nation, we have to deal with several nation states. So it's complex, because the nation state of India, where 4 out of 5 Sikhs still live, in the Indian state of Punjab, their relationship is going to be much more tense and dramatic than, for example, where the similar 2% population in Canada, Sikhs in Canada, will have with the Canadian government, for example. So we must not equate them. I think we do this false equivalence very quickly, because the soft power of the Sikhs matters, your numbers matter, your representative rights matter, how many other civil affiliations you have created, the allyships you have created, the wealth you have created, all that matters. It gets into your leveraging with the nation state, right? So that said, it's messy. It's very messy.
Yeah, I actually really like that answer, because I think we get a lot of, Sikhs are so in big capital P politics. We're so involved in politics, and it feels really obvious to me, because that's in our DNA. It's in our history. It's in the Bani that we read. Our Bani is political, and so you do your Nitnem every day. You're not gonna be able to abstain from being political. But then there's so much criticism of, how could you, do your Nitnem in the morning and pledge your allegiance to Akal Takht and to that Ik Onkar, and then go and take an oath and say that we're a Commonwealth country, so our politicians swear their oaths to the Queen, and then to say that you work for the Queen. And it's important and interesting and relevant to know that it was messy during the Guru's time as well.
And the post-Guru period, I think, has great lessons for us. Sometimes very weak, just like we remove secondary writings with one stroke because we didn't like a particular interpretation. We do the same thing with the politicians of even 18th century or the 19th century or the 20th. we need to be a little bit more patient with them because we don't even know how to deal with that messiness. So we take up a escape route, right? We just denounce everyone as if I have the answers. I don't. So what do? Well, here is a good example. There are people who worked for Maharaja Ranjit Singh even when the nation state was run by a Sikh. Was that's a great nation state he created. It was a Raj, it was a monarchical system, but it's, I mean, today's language, that's what we'll call it. It was run by a Sikh, but it was not a Sikh state. There are people who worked for Ranjit Singh as a Maharaja who still have allegiance to Akal Takht, but they were paid by him. We see this in Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj period. There were people who did not work for Guru Gobind Singh, but they came to fight on his behalf because that's what Guru does. Khalsa is supposed to be that ideal. Regardless of your profession, regardless of where you get your paycheck from, regardless of which other riyasat. Today the riyasat is the princely estate or nation states. Okay? Regardless of where you call your nationalities now, because that's 150-year-old phenomena. The passports were not even required until about 50 years ago. So we have to grapple with all this. You know, these immigrations, this nation states is new, but we have to deal with it. Within there, earlier people also dealt with it. One thing was very clear to them. Those who claim to be of the Guru, regardless of which princely estate or which king they reported to, when the call came from Akal Takht, they were ready to give up everything. Now, this is very important. And I'll give a nation state example pre-47 here. This is important. When Nankana Sahib Saka happened, one of the guys in that element, that's episode, Sikh guy, he worked for the British government. He was a soldier. He even got a VC, I think. But you know, it's a very interesting point. When they're giving him the medal, they say your next assignment is at Nankana Sahib. He's like, so now after rewarding me, you want me to go spy on my own people? He quit his job. There are some who don't quit. Some who will quit because they're smart enough to figure out now they want me to go kill my own people. So these are the things we need to grapple with. Our relationship, if you are in Canada, of course I think the larger problem is when we living in any country are citizens of a particular country. What does it mean to have an allegiance with the Guru Khalsa Panth? Guru Granth Sahib ਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਸਾਰੀ allegiance ਦੇ ਹੀ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ, non Sikh ਵੀ ਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, ਮੁਬਾਰਕ ਹੋਵੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ। ਬਟ ਗੁਰੂ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਦਾ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਟੈਕਟ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਆਪਣਾ ਸਿਰ ਲਾਣ ਲਈ ਵੀ ਤਿਆਰ ਆ, ਹੈ ਨਾ। ਬਾਕੀਆਂ ਲਈ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਸਕ੍ਰਿਪਚਰ ਆ, ਬਾਕੀਆਂ ਲਈ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਵਿਜ਼ਡਮ ਆ, ਬਟ ਸਿੱਖ ਲਈ ਉਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਆ, ਇਸੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਆ। So when somebody is willing to do that they're willing to give up their citizenship, when they're willing to say the law of the land, as much as I have been following it, but on this juncture, at this juncture in my life, on this particular issue, I am willing to violate this law because this is undermining the sovereignty of the Panth. I think it's that kind of a conversation we need.
That's a fairly,
we all have to be able to rise to those occasions and have that conversations within. Collectively, we need to come up with what does this cohort look like.
I think that's a fairly good, you want to call it a test or whatever, like to exist in these complicated roles and to do these complicated things. But when push comes to shove, that are you helping, are you hurting your Panth? And if there are not competing allegiances, it's fine. And where there are competing allegiances, where do folks land? And I think, I like that lens. It's a good way to look at modern politics. Is there anything that you see, like the way that we were meant to engage politically and the model that Guru Gobind Singh Ji gave us? Is there something that I'm giving you open rein to be critical of Sikh capital P politics. So like not the small politics of our lives, but our nation state politics. Is there anything you don't see being brought? Any spirit of the Khalsa, like any element that we know we're supposed to bring in and you're not seeing enough of it? You don't have to name names. It's not gotcha journalism. But anything you're not seeing?
Sure. I think there are two things I can share in this regard. One thing which I am not seeing, and I think this is perhaps cyclically when I see in a historical Sikh trend analysis of last 553 years now, is this in the last 200 years. Those who assert even territorial sovereignty, we don't know how to defend them anymore. This is problematic. I'm not saying that every askance of that is legitimate. But what I'm saying is that in the recent phenomena, it's getting harder and harder for us because nation states are more concretized now. So every threat you see which a nation state perceives from militancy, from self-determinations, we are having tough time figuring out how to deal with that as a community. And I think we need to pay a little bit more focus. And here is what I would say. I think an honest conversation is important here. Look, there has always been a group of people who believed that what once Baba Banda Singh Bahadur has established Sikh Raj, it will come and go, and some will always aspire for it. ये ना 10वें बादशाह का promise है ना. So we need to understand that. When he says, Sono Nand Lal Ji, when Bhai Nand Lal Goya is recording this. And in that recording of the answers in Nasihatnama, or now what we call Tankhanama, it's the last lines which we only read. Raj karega Khalsa, Aki rahe na koi, khwar hoye sab milenge, bache sharan jo hoye. Even Sardar Kapoor Singh is able to talk about it in the nation state of India as a parliamentarian, as a Akali leader, as a ICS officers, while he is serving a state, while he is serving a political party. But he had it within him that we must acknowledge that this is not a right we are looking from a state. This is a right we have always had. And if some of us wanted, if several Sikhs wanted, states need to acknowledge why. I think this issue we have lost. This is one issue we have lost because we are too afraid, or we have minimized what the Khalsa is. Okay? So there is no permanent allegiance of the Khalsa to any nation state. The Crown knew this very well. The British understood this very well. That's why they figured out how to control that. And they had tough relationship with the Khalsa, and the Crown was very tough relationship. So that's one thing. I think now we are grappling with several nation states. Second thing which I would say, politicians in every nation state are going through, I think they're trying, they want to bring in the value system of the Sikhi, but they're only leaving that to ceremonial levels. They actually don't bring it in the policy making. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, I welcome and appreciate Vaisakhi messages globally. Don't misunderstand me. And even, why do we get too worked up if Prime Minister of India does it? And why do we appreciate it too much when the Prime Minister of Canada does it? I mean, we have to come out of our own disingenuousness. When a nation state's leader is doing, maybe they are doing it to co-opt their vote. Maybe it is just ceremonial, but whatever it is, we must welcome it. That's what it means to integrate, and they're acknowledging. Then we say, don't even acknowledge us. But what I am saying is, our Sikh politicians, especially the ones who have gone through the initiation ceremony, they have to make it much more than that. This doesn't mean that they are working to create only spaces for the Sikhs or Sikh paradigms. What it means is they're also working to protect the freedoms. That's what Khalsa was about. Khalsa was about eliminating, quote unquote, the perversion in this world, which is, some people call it evil. You can call it whatever. Politically, we call it when people are being treated as a second-class citizens or third-class citizens anywhere in the world. That element is not being practiced anymore, which an earlier politician would risk. They will assert, even within a particular political party, they will assert that, कि नहीं, ये बनदा साडा गल करनी. Even if we can do 1% of that or 10% of that within the whatever political party we are choosing to do. So those are my two larger things. But the second one is very particular to politicians who claim to be of the Sikhs, not just that, but who also claim to be of the Khalsa.
Those are important distinctions and important lessons to take forward. I'm going to shift over to looking at some of our questions that folks have been asking. And a reminder, if you do have questions, please put them in the Q&A box. If you're on a PC, you'll see them on the bottom. I don't know what they look like if you're on your phone, but not in the chat, but in the Q&A. So we're going to start with I like this first question. It's a little bit light. Would you ever like to see Guru Gobind's battles if you could go back in time? And I'm going to add a layer. If you could witness any one battle, which one would it be?
Thank you for asking that. I actually go through that a lot, and I went through that more between the years. I specifically remember between 1997 and 2002 when I lived in Punjab, when I visited Anandpur Sahib area multiple times in a year. And you know what I used to do about it? I would say, and sometimes it'll be a groups, and I will just split out for a few minutes, and I'm like, can I listen to ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਚ ਮੈਂ ਕਹਾਂ ਜੇ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਘੋੜਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਟਾਪਾਂ ਵੀ ਕੀ ਮੈਂ ਸੁਣ ਸਕਦਾ
Mm,
you know because he's the Nile wala right the Nila is his horse the rider of the blue steed idea I personally don't have aspiration to witness the battles but I definitely still like to see I cannot see Guru Gobind Singh I am not capable of seeing Guru Gobind Singh Guru Gobind Singh is too radiant for me but can I at least hear the larger symbolisms attached to him and the Sikhs who served him? Oh, meri aspiration jagura. I look for that. I try to somehow visualize it when I do some secondary text readings, and I also when I listen to or read Veer Singh or Mahakavi Santokh Singh or Professor Pooran Singh. You know, the big writers for me are those. Harinder Singh, you know, I think Baba Janal Singh Pindrawale, because Bibi Balveer Kaur's story when it comes to me, because she invoked people who invoked Padsha beyond performance. When I relate to them, when I try to relate to them, फिर मेरा जी जरूर करदा कि मैं गुरु साहब ਦੀ ਨੇੜਤਾ ਵੱਲ ਜਾਵਾਂ ਹੋਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਚਿਹਰੇ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਫੇਸ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਇੰਨੀ ਤਿਆਰੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ
Thank you. It's really beautiful. Another question. How do diaspora Sikhs continue to practice sovereignty and continue to honor the fact that the Gurus established a Raj?
I think I've shared with you my understandings of those. It's a very important and a very tough question. The how questions must be answered by each individual. I've shared with you what Khalsa's idea was. You know, the Khalsa was not created to solve Sikh problems. We need to understand this very well. Khalsa was created as the one to capture political power while working toward to establish the Ikonkar paradigm. There is no doubt in my mind that's what Khalsa's job was. And every secondary text says that. Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj himself, in he ki kirpa, saje hum tahan si galanne ya. But when he says, Judd jite in he ke, that I won the battles because of them, you know, we need to get out of this that, you know, battles were for defense only, battles were only for, these are not our words. Let's go back to our words. And what Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj attributed this Savaiya to him is saying, because of their grace, it is in his humility he's presenting, because he holds his own archetype to be his guru. I just want to elevate in our minds what Khalsa is, because I don't think we understand it, especially this 20th and 21st century phenomena when we start putting our Khalsa as our last names. It is not that. Please do not do that. Khalsa mera Satgur Pura. Khalsa is a cohort who is drenched in now. And that drenched warrior, that Sura, who is working only when an answer to the divine, to the Ikonkar, in the line of the Gurus, who's working, jada nirdhan ko pale, the one who is going to take care of the downtrodden. And if even the Sikh nation state needs their help, then it will also provide that. So it's very vast. The Guru cannot be territorial, never was, but Guru participated in territorial disputes to mediate them and even fight for them. And we must understand that. We are supposed to be much bigger and much vast. We are the oneness people. So how can Khalsa do that today? Well, you decide. Based on your relationship with the Guru, your relationship with the Shabad, your relationship with the collective Sikh communities, that cohort which understands it, lives it, feels it, and wants to do everything intellectually possible, everything from their monetary assets and everything from their physical strength to establish this goal of capturing political power for, as Sardar Jagjit Singh called it, from a plebeian mission for everyday commoners. We did that in Punjab. Our aspiration to do that in Punjab continues, and our aspiration to do that at every nation state we stay in must continue. That's how you will fight the power.
That goes really well into one of our next questions, which is specifically about Punjab. The Sikh ideology is undeniably universal. What kept the Gurus from migrating south deeper into the heart of India to avoid conflict? Punjab is arguably the most contentious region of India. Why did we insist on staying there of all places? Curious on your thoughts on the strategic ideological value of sacrificing so much for that region.
Great question. First answer is, first admissions here is I don't have an answer. So I can give you historical discovery, what I have done. That answer only Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj knows. But what we do know is this: Guru did venture. Gurus, if you look at territorial explorations and journeys, went all the way from today's nation states of Saudi Arabia to Sri Lanka. So don't think Gurus didn't do that. But every single one returned to Punjab, including the first non-Punjabi Guru, Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj, technically Bihari, born in Bihar, Patna. He's the first non-diaspora Guru, non-Punjabi Guru. He also comes back to Punjab and then leaves Punjab. So why Punjab? That answer pretty much is, look, Kartarpur was set up in Punjab because you can go to any territories to have conversations, to have dialogues, to share with them what your idea is, fight for certain people's right in other territories. But you need to have your space where that territory will at least practice that paradigm. And Gurus chose that paradigm. Every single Guru chose that between Kartarpur and Anandpur, even after establishing a diaspora center in Patna. Even when two takhts even now exist in Hazur Sahib and Patna. The reason is the project space was Punjab. And that project space you have to show. You have to show it by doing it. You can't say, superficially or philosophically, we rule the whole world, Khalsa is for the world. You better believe it, Khalsa is for the world. But you got to show it. Where is your, what they call MVP in today's language? Can you show me your product? The product is Sikhs did it in Punjab. Every Guru set up a free city-state in Punjab. Within the 18th century, after 700 years of continuous subjugation of the larger Punjab, 1765, Lahore was captured by Sikhs, much before Ranjit Singh consolidated it. So that's where we showed it, and we showed how to rule. We could work with. We had people who were both Hindus and Muslims as part of the administrators. So Punjab is that special place, and historically, Gurus, this idea, has been captured by Ratan Singh Pangu the most beautifully, that one day Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj asked Sikhs, as they say, the storytelling narratives are, it's the genre, the way to explain an idea, that one day Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj is very happy with the Sikhs, and he says, ask me for anything. And the Sikhs keep saying, Guru kehde, Uttar mango, Dakhan mango, this very question, why not more to the north, and why not more to the south? And Sikhs are saying, Hum Punjab mango, Hum Punjab mango. So this idea of Punjab is where our project took place. And now we are supposed to be, actually not now, since Guru Nanak period. He never said, Vasde raho to those who did not have things to do for the world. People who didn't know what to do, he told them Vasde raho, which means you are only good for yourself. That's how I interpret it. And the ones who had figured out the idea, he says, disperse, ujjad jao. And now we are dispersed. Whether we know this in our psyche or not, there is an element of that we are carrying everywhere in the world. In our disbursement, in our migrant stories, don't just make it about what a 19-year-old did by killing half of them were Sikhs in Indianapolis yesterday. Our migrant story is this also. That wherever we went, we said, we will not be the victims only. We have always been killed, guys. We've been killed en masse many a time. Our story has always been, you do what you need to do in any supremacy. We deal with odd supremacies, not just white supremacies. We are dealing with caste supremacies. We are dealing with Hindu supremacies. We have dealt with Muslim supremacies earlier. We are dealing with Punjabi supremacies. We are dealing with sexism. There's so many of these things going on. Our job always was in your disbursement, in your migrations, in your ujjad jao. You are carrying this idea to fight for the lowest level of communities you are in, wherever you live, whoever has the least rights, fight for them, free them economically, politically, spiritually, or whichever freedom they are looking for.
Yeah, ਏਦਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੋਚਿਆ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਜੜਿਆਂ ਚ, because it's a strength-based thing. That's a really beautiful way of understanding why we're out here. Maybe we're doing something good and we brought all of that strength with us. Okay, so moving on to the next question. How does the creation of Khalsa transform into missiles? How did strategies, leadership, and tactics change after the Battle of Chamkaur?
Very specific questions, and I actually have not seen any detailed analysis of this, so I will be conjecturing primarily here. I've read about battles of Chamkaur primarily from a poetic element and spirit element. We also know some numbers, so there could be some statistical analysis of how many were people who were fighting on each side. We also know anecdotal warriorness when it came to, for example, Vade Sahibzades. But what we forget, Vade Sahibzade, so we like a little bit of just the guruship idea and their sons, but remember, everyone who took initiation is Guru's son and daughters. So why do we forget that the three Panj Pyares also gave Shahadat there at Battle of Chamkaur? So, you know, we are the history of the people. And we must create that representations when we tell these stories and when we do somewhat of an analysis. I don't think we have enough data to do proper analysis yet because we don't know our data itself yet. But in the spirit of that, what did happen from Chamkaur was we knew that the life does not matter. The life of subjugation is not acceptable. So, you know, when Allah Yar Khan Jogi writes about what happened at Chamkaur, what Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj said to even his biological sons, you know, we forget that where he says, Tum jao, where he says, Mar jao ya maro, tumhe Allah ko sampa. It's like the time now is either you die or you kill, because that's what happens in battle, guys. If any one of you have taken any training anywhere, you know, the bullet is coming one way or the other in today's context. So either you kill or get killed. And Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj, in this poet's mind, is saying this, Tumhe Allah ko sampa. I have already made you gods, you're not mine. So your job is now to go fight and don't ask about other questions right now, right? And there he continues, Vaheguru tumhe jang ki himmat tumhe bakshe, pyase ho bahut, jame shahadat tumhe bakshe. The strategy of Sikhs always was that we are committed to the cause, and there in that cause, we are doing this in the divine's name.
Well, can you say that one more time? I need that to like sink in again.
So it's a long poet, Shahidane Wafa and Jange Shahidan. They're two large, long poems by Allah Jar Khan Yogi. I'm quoting from there. They're one of my favorites line. Like, when will Guru Gobind Singh say to me? It's like that romantic element I have, right? But the line is powerful for me, where he says, Pyase ho bahut, because one of the narratives is that one of the Sahibzadas says, let me have a glass of water. He says, if you are that thirsty, now the time is Jame Shahadat tumhe bakshe. May the divine grace you with jam. Literally a shot. Alcohol shot is how it's used for. He says Jame Shahadat. But the shot of martyrdom, may you go drink that now.
Wow.
Not just may you be graced with that now. So I think what we know from Chamkaur is that you're not doing, so today's environment, what this means to me is, you know, when we talk in nation state sense, you know, we should make all the congressmen and women and their sons and daughters as the #1 recruited soldiers in every army. Then you will see how they fight. And Guru Gobind Singh did that. That's my point. So, you know, when your own blood in a human sense, and Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj is practicing that fully, and the very 5 lovers, 3 of them are present there. They are the ones to drink that Jame Shahadat that day. So Chamkaur was a reminder that against all odds, even if you temporarily lose a battle, you must never lose the battle of ideas.
It took me a very, very long time to realize that we even lost that battle. I think it was like a couple of years ago because I've only ever heard about it in poems and stories and katha, and like you hear so many beautiful stories about Jamgod, and then you're like, oh yeah, I guess we technically lost. that we don't seem to fixate on that too much.
And I think it's okay not to do it, but we must realize. So it's how we tell our story, right? That's what I'm saying. The battle of idea must never be lost, because Guru Granth Sahib says this, that the warrior is who? We are not fighters, guys. Fighter is only about winning. Warrior is definitely not about only winning. Warrior is about doing the right thing for the right reason. And when Guru Granth Sahib says so, if you are not the one who is drenched in love, is the warrior. Jako har rang lago is jug mein, so kahiyat hai sura. And those people don't leave the battlefield. So not leaving the battlefield is our tradition. Whether Baba Deep Singh did it, whether Pai Mani Singh did it, whether Sahibzade did it, whether selected cohort of militants did it in the last 30 years. Whether certain people in the Saragadi did it, even if they're serving an empire. But that is part of a psyche. That's our strategy. Our strategy is, who doesn't want to win? Of course, we won many battles as well, including the territorial ones. That's how we set up the Kingdom of Punjab. Right? And we were expansionists as well. We went all the way to Afghanistan border under Hari Singh Nalwa's commandership. And even in Indian histories, look at what we have done as generals and other things and colonels. So whichever, and whether your Canadian defense minister, what he did in Afghanistan and how celebrated he is among the NATO generals, right? We have that in our psyche. What we are saying here is what Chamkaur did was the next step. That even if I may physically die, it is worth it, because this is the story, this is the narrative that we must not ever say that I'm not willing to die for freedom.
Thank you. And so I'm going to do one last question. I see that people there's some questions in the chat, and there's some questions we didn't get to, and my apologies for that. But there's definitely a lot of content. Again, Sikh Research Institute has so much beautiful stuff. There's something for everyone. I think is it illuminating every path? Those are the words that come with the Sikhri logo. So whatever path you're on, for every path, there's content. Please check it out. So the last question from Gurpreet saying, servant leadership seems to embody Guruji's decision to share power during the Khalsa's inauguration and to shift to collective power amongst the Panjab and the Panth. Were servant leadership models. Were there servant leadership models operating in the Indus subcontinent at the time that would have influenced his thought, or was this originality an extreme reaction to Aurangzeb's reign? Lastly, what qualities are lacking or necessary for the Panth to regain this servant leadership model in today's contemporary times? Many people succumb to the adage of power corrupts, and shared power seems more difficult to maintain these days. So there's two questions in there. One about, was it the servant leadership model, was it original to Guru Gobind Singh Ji or a reaction to Aurangzeb? And the second part of the question are, what qualities are lacking or necessary for the Panth to regain this model?
Great question. So two things. Look, the idea of servant leadership has been there. It exists in many traditions. So we must not be so complex ridden not to acknowledge it. But what is the unique in this Ape Gurchela? Well, the unique thing started from Guru Nanak himself. And Guru Gobind Singh practiced it in collective. So it's the same idea being democratized by Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj. The unique in Sikh tradition was the Chela actually became the Guru. Other traditions, they don't. The Guru still remains. Guru Nanak actually said Guru Angad is the Guru while he's being alive and lived for it to supervise that for several months. Guru Gobind Singh Sahib did it. It became harder because now it's 5. And it became harder because the clan mentality is broken. The caste mentality is broken. The underprivileged are the rulers. And not by tokenism, but by severe perseverance and severe commitment. So this is a serious mandate change. The uniqueness of Dasme Padshahs in the line of the Gurus is Dasme Padshah is democratizing leadership, as we'll call it, but not And he's doing it with a mandate. It's not a declaration anymore. And in that, the protege gets to become a mentor now. Dasme Pasha did it. Guru, in fact, I've shared this. I think it's the third Guru who explicitly even wrote this when he said, Sikh Guru, Guru Sikh hai ek hai, Guru Upadesh chala hai. When the protege and mentor become one, when the protege furthers the mentor's mission, the idea is that whoever is furthering the wisdom becomes the next mentor. So that's the first part of the question. That's the uniqueness. What are we lacking today? Look, what we are lacking is, and in today's parlance, even Malcolm Gladwell's and others are in many places, many coaches are now using this phrase of in corporate world, servant leader model. What's lacking from a Sikh angle is we actually are not even servants properly. Protege hi saadi puri nahi ho rahi. Te aise guru baran nu firde hain that we want to be the leaders and the representative. The protege has to further the mission of the guru first. And our apprenticeship is incomplete, is my understanding. And it will never be perfect, but it cannot be incomplete. The practice will be imperfect, and that's why it's messy. It has always been messy. But our protege, as a protege, our allegiances, our trainings, our understandings are quite incomplete right now.
I've taken so much from what we've talked about. I think my personal, the big one I'm going to work on is Raj Jog Manana, like to enjoy this and to see we're in a very, very challenging time, no matter what country you're in. And thank you for talking about the shooting in Indianapolis. So yet another challenge faced by the Sikh community, and to take every opportunity, every challenge that we see as a chance to live the way Guru Gobind, like to think about, learn specifically from those examples, the battles we talked about today, the politics we talked about today, and to enjoy the challenge and be present in the challenge. Any final words before I hand it back to Sandy?
Well, look, so I'll just re-invoke the title a little bit. You know, we try to talk about the politics of the Guru, the battles of the Guru in the context of the Khalsa. The number one takeaway for me when I reflected on Vaisakhi this year, and I'm glad Sikh Heritage Month is continuing. It's good to see both Sandy and you. Usually we hang out a little bit over coffee and pakoras, and now we do it over Zoom. Thank you for hosting and asking these questions. The reminder for myself and all of us is really going back to the idea of what Khalsa is and not reduce it. It's okay to say, I am in training. There's nothing wrong with that. But we must not undermine the idea of Khalsa. And that's what I'm really after. And with my friend, I'm visiting in New Jersey actually right now. We were discussing in a car after lunch today. I said, when we are not able to solve certain theorems, like a Pythagoras theorem in math, we don't say this theorem is bad. We say, I'm not able to solve it yet. I need help. So let's understand Khalsa is the Guru of Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj, because Guru Gobind Singh said so and enthroned them. Don't just call them the five lovers who got enthroned. Unhanu nu Raj karna sikhaya. Let's go back to that idea that Guru Gobind Singh's collective leadership was transferred to the representatives of the Sikhs called the Khalsa. And let's train to become the members of the Khalsa. That training is hard, absolutely. Which training is not? But those who choose to go through that training, we must do it with diligence, and we must do it while being drenched with love. Thank you, both of you.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. I want to say thank you, of course, to Harinder Singh from Sikhri, as well as Jaspreet Kaur for your time. This was a great, insightful conversation. The chat's been going through. I'm getting messages on the side. People are really enjoying the conversation, and I really appreciate your time. And it's nice to connect with you guys, even though it's virtually and not in person like we normally do. We do have another Sikhri session next week on Saturday, the same time, with Ini Kaur from Sikhri as well. And I've also put in the website in the chat if someone wants to copy that over. Sikhri.org, some great resources, great programming, just great information overall if anybody wants to check it out. Thank you to all our attendees for joining us. We hope that you can join us next week as well. I put the registration link, and hopefully we see everyone's faces next week as well. And thanks again. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.